Hello, everyone, and welcome back into Making the Complex Simple. I'm your host, Morgan Whalen. This is a podcast all about my experiences and what I'm going through currently in my business and my learnings. And I'm hoping to pass those along to you without you having to go through it yourself so you can get the lessons without the scars. So if you're ready, let's jump right in and let's go ahead and get started. And, the last 2-ish weeks that I've been kind of working on my business, one of the things that I've really been focused on a lot, and I want to spend some time on talking about this in the podcast today, is value. And I think about this all the time now. What can I provide of value to the people that I hope to do business with later on down the line, right? And the goal that I'm trying to get to, how can I, at every single touch point that I have with a potential customer, how can I add value to them? And so then that got me thinking in my head. I'm like, okay, well, what is actually valuable? What do we, obviously I looked at it through the business owner's lens, but I'm broadening a little bit here. What do we value? What are the things that we find of value that we would exchange, money for? And so I have a list here that I came up with that I thought about, and I wanted to share them with you. So if you're thinking about how can I add more value to the people that I want to do business with, then maybe you could take one of these or multiple of these and apply them to your business and figure out ways, okay, got it. How can I add more touch points of value to them? Because I'm a firm believer in is you reap what you sow. So if you can sow better seeds, you're going to have a better harvest at some point down the line. Now, caveat here is if you just sow your seeds, but you don't know how to reap the harvest, meaning you don't know how to convert people, that's a whole other thing altogether. But right now we're just talking about planting the seeds of value, giving away a lot of value, helping others essentially with their problems in life. And so immediately what I thought of is, what are real world examples that people are willing to pay money for? And one of the ones that I think about often, or I thought about first, I should say, is Disneyland. And so Disneyland, they're selling you an experience, right? You get the roller coasters, you have the food, you have the atmosphere, you have the characters that are walking around. So one, they're selling you an experience, and the parents take their kids to go there to have this magical experience, the happiest place on earth, right? So I think having a really good experience, especially if you're doing events or things like that, that can provide a lot of value, and people will definitely pay for that. And so I think that's definitely one. Another one that I thought about in Disneyland specifically is, when you go to Disneyland, you can buy an extra, it used to be called Fast Pass, but now it's called like Genie or something, right? But it's essentially a ticket or access to a separate lane than the regular lane that gets you on the rides quicker. So what are they doing? They're saying, hey, if you want to bypass the lines, here's this way that you can do it. And people will pay, I don't know how much it is right now, but people will pay a lot more money to do the Fast Pass. And so that's something that people value. People value time, right? Time is the most valuable thing. So if you can figure out ways to save people time and whatever it is that they're doing already, that's a value add. In that same kind of token, if you could figure out a way to save people money, that would also be effective. So think about like HelloFresh, Blue Apron. Their claim to fame is, you don't want to throw out food in your refrigerator that you're not using. We're going to send you a box with everything that you need. So we're going to save you time, so you don't have to go to the grocery store. And we're going to save you, so you're not wasting any products. You're going to actually use everything that's in the box. And we're going to save you time because it's, cheaper than going out to eat at a restaurant in a comparison. So they're hitting different value points right there of saying, all right, we deliver it to your door. You don't have to go to the grocery store, and it's cheaper than eating out, and it's healthier, right? So all these different values start stacking up there. And so I think that's another good one that you can try to incorporate. It's how can I save people money, right? So I'm in the finance space. So this one I think about a lot is like, what can I do, or how can I help business owners save money or increase money? I think that's the opposite end of that as well. How can I help them grow their businesses, bring in more money in a way that doesn't take that much time to implement, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to implement, right? So those are some extra factors that I think about. All right. So we talked about speed, cutting down time, cutting down money. So what's another one? I think convenience is another good one. That kind of is the HelloFresh, but I was thinking about it more from the lens of an airplane. So if you go on an airplane, you have economy class, And then you have business class. In business class, you're going to have more room. You get some more features added on. So that's, I think, another value where it's like you can get the free drink or you maybe get the meal. Then you have like first class where you can, especially if it's international, you can lay out completely. You have your own little room, swivels, and it's pretty much, as luxury as it gets. So I think comfort is another one that people will pay extra for. Okay. And so, as we're going through these, again, think about how can I add elements of value through every step with my potential customers, so then they would more want to work with me down the line as a customer. They're willing to pay for my services. They're like, wow, if this is what they're giving away just for free, I can't imagine what they're going to give once I work with them. That's the kind of the association you want to build with your brand or your company. So the next one, and this one is status. And I think this one can go status and identity. They kind of can go together. So think really high-end clothes. People like women, I think, get these purses that have the logo on there, like LV or other brands. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know all of them, but it's a status symbol. It's saying I have wealth, I have money, look at me a certain way. So it makes them feel a certain way. They're having an emotional, attachment to that bag, and it presents some sort of identity out to other people to say, look at me in this way. I think Apple, which is a little bit more common one, is also another status symbol. For a while, it was more of like a creative / luxury brand. And so I think that also had a really good status symbol. And obviously the brand's worth, I think it's still the highest valued brand. So it definitely is doing it right with the association that it's building with the logo that it has. So what's the next one? So the next one, I think, for value is scarcity or exclusivity. I think about like trading cards with this, but if you have a pack of cards that just no one else has, it's going to be worth more, especially if it has people that are well known. Think baseball cards, basketball cards. So in those types of things like collector, rare edition, art, trading cards, sports, maybe some type of shoes too, like Jordans. They only had like a limited amount that would go out of these Jordan shoes. Limited quantity also produces or has value. And you'll see this sometimes when people are trying to sell things online, right? They're going to say, oh, well, they stack a couple different value things. Save 30%, right? The times or the money savings. And there's only like 6 left in stock. Oh, it's scarcity. So people will assume, okay, got it. A lot of people like these. So they're making an association, and there's only so many left. I need them to act now before there's no more left, right? So they stack a couple different value pillars in there to help try to get you across the finish line to purchase from them. Another one that they have that I think is very valuable is the transformation of the result. And so a lot of times, especially in professional services, so if you're like an ads agency, for example, you're selling the result a lot of times. So it's like, hey, like if you work with us and you spend this much money, we're gonna, double your revenue or double your revenue from at least your marketing efforts or your ad spend efforts than it was before. And so a lot of it's based on the result that they're promising or the transformation from where they are to where they expect to be working with you can be. And you can see these transformation type values throughout. These ones are sometimes a little bit harder to sell, depends on who you are, but people do value the transformation or the results or this specific outcome. So they're going to try to find people that can help get them there. Again, the quickest, the cheapest, and the most likely to do it, right? And so all these other values start stacking on top of each other when you look at a business altogether. Another one is the likelihood that the outcome is going to happen. So if we're thinking about the dream outcome of doubling the revenue, so how likely is that to happen? So people value risk. They're risk averse, and people don't like to lose money. So if you could show some way where you're like, hey, listen, your losses will be capped if you do this, and it's only upside, then that's a good selling point for people. I've not gone into this too much, but I know that there are like insurance companies that sell universal like life insurance. And that's one of their main pitch points of like, hey, if you buy this insurance, it gets invested in the stock market and it doesn't never go negative. Like it caps at, there's no downside, there's only upside. And, to me, that's red flags because, there should be some level of risk involved if you're putting your money to work, unless you're doing like government bonds, right? So my point here is the guarantee of it being able to, like, if you're thinking about a construction, right? If they say, hey, we're going to do it in 2 weeks, you want to have some feeling, some guarantee that that is actually going to happen in 2 weeks, and then they don't take 2 months, right? And if they can do it in 1 week, guess what? You might pay more for that. So the speed there too plays a factor. So you can see how, again, once you start understanding these value pieces, you can start playing with them and say, okay, how can I add more value to what I am offering to people from a business standpoint? Okay. And then I already talked about this one, but the experience, the emotional connection, I think a lot of brands do this very well. So if you're brand building, like Nike, like Apple, even some people have really strong brands like a Taylor Swift, right? Personal brands. And they have this association built with them. So that would really create, people associate Taylor Swift with a good experience and family friendly and maybe 2 or 3 other things. And so they're willing to go experience that, pay really high ticket prices to go experience her live in person. So that's one thing too. And I think there, you can't see Taylor Swift every day in your city. So there is like a uniqueness or rarity to her showing up in your city. It might only be like once a year or every other year. Or if you're in a country like Australia, she might only show up once every 4 years, right? So then there's another thing, that rarity kicks in, as well as the association that you have with her, that you have a positive association because you like her music. And then you have the experience with the rarity there, and it makes it a product or a ticket price that goes up through the roof really quick. And then I think another one is simplicity. So if you're like, hey, we need to do these 20 steps to get you from A to Z, or someone else comes along and, hey, you can actually do it in 5 steps. It's really simple. And if you want, you can do it yourself. Well, you're going to value the simpler path typically more than the one where you have to jump through all these hoops and do all these things, and you're just not very clear about what's happening or where things are going. And so I think really simplifying it, making it really easy, digestible, people value that. So if you're making content and you're using jargon that's in your specific industry or language, maybe define it or use simpler terms so then that everyone can understand it and follow along. So that is more value too. Again, another one that I put into this list because it kind of is an overarching one, but I think just in general, solving people's problems is a good frame to think about it through. So if you are a business owner and you want to work with a certain group of people, you got to ask yourself, like, what are the problems they're experiencing in their life? And how can I provide easy, simple, fast, like all these other value elements that I just told you about, ways for them to be able to overcome those things. And then eventually they're going to run into the problem that I solve for my paid services. And then that's when you would introduce yourself. And by that point, hopefully you've built some credibility, some trust with them because you've delivered for free on all these things up to that point. So that's the way that I think about it. And in my mind, if you want to build a relationship, if you want to build a positive brand and have a positive association in people's minds, that's the way that I'm thinking about it. That's the way I'm going about it for myself. And so a lot of this last 2 weeks, yes, still running the business, but a lot of it's been around how can I think about adding more value at each touch point to the people that I want to work with? And then how can I incorporate the elements of value into what I am going to give away, typically for free or for a very low cost, to those people? And so they're like, wow, I want them to get blown away so much. They're like, wow, this was so valuable. I want to tell other people about it, right? That's how you start getting the network effect or the word of mouth that spreads and lets other people know about like what you're doing or who you are. And so I think if you just can spend more time, again, this is my approach that I'm taking right now. If you spend more time on creating some really valuable things that help people with their problems, that's going to grow your network, that's going to grow your brand, that's going to grow your customer base faster, I think, than really, most other things. And so that's what I think about it a lot. And I think technology is a good way to leverage that. So you want to think about like how scalable is the thing that you're going to be offering. So if you're going to offer something for free and it's your time, and I forgot to add this one in there because your time is also, I think, a valuable thing. So if you have a unique set of skills or a unique set of ways in which you do things, or you've gained a certain level of knowledge or experience, people will go seek you out for that knowledge or experience on top of their unique situation. So I think personalized is also a unique value creation tool there as well. So if someone calls a customer service center, let's say you have a problem with your phone and you call up Verizon, AT&T, whoever it is, and you get like an agent, an AI agent on the phone, you're like, oh, this isn't going to help me, right? But if you get an actual person, that's way better because you could speak to them, you could tell them your exact story, your situation, then they can understand all the nuances and why this isn't working that way and yada, yada, right? And so personalization definitely helps too, but it's less scalable. Only one person can talk to one person at a time. But you want to figure out, like, based on what it is that you're offering, how scalable is it? So your value sometimes will go with the unscalable things, and that's fine to do a bit of that. And then you want to do things that are more scalable, which is, leveraging technology or the web or something like that, where people can get value from things that only took you one time maybe to create, but then provides value multiple times. So think software. Software is a good example. The engineers, they build it. Obviously, there's different versions that come out every year, 6 months, depending on the cycle, but it can serve many, many, many people all at the same time. And so it's providing a ton of value once it's built. So I would think of things like books too. Books provide a ton of value. Back in the day when they were written with someone who would like pour all their life's work, 20, 30, 40 years of their industry or knowledge into this book to pass it on. And so that's a huge amount. You're learning 20, 30, 40 years of experience in, call it 8 hours, 10 hours of reading, whatever it may be. That's a ton of time saving for you, right? Which is a value add. So I look at it through that lens. Obviously, books have changed over the years. Now people do it more for marketing and, they put one out every 1 year to 2 years. And so there's a lot less value, a lot more fluff, but same concept applies. People are taking their experiences, bottling it up into a format that then can be dispersed to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, rather than just them talking one-to-one. Also think of someone going on stage too. That's a one-to-many scenario there. So if you can get on stage and talk to 1,000 people, that's a leverage point that you couldn't get when you were one-to-one. And so there's many different formats, there's many different ways, but you could just think about it and then just say, okay, got it. When I first talk to them, whatever your sales process looks like or your customer journey process looks like, you just need to start looking and say, okay, how can I add more value to each stage of this? So if they interact on my website, is there something I can give them for free that they would find a value? Yes. Okay, got it. Now, once they've consumed that one free thing, what else can I give them that is a free? Maybe I can start making an email sequence and it can go for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of more things that I can help solve their problems with. And then maybe down the line, they want to work with me. Or again, there's different options. But that's really where my mind has been around recently on value creation and, creating things that help solve practical real world problems and will help, in my case, business owners move farther along down their entrepreneurship journey. So that was one of the big ones, big lessons, big takeaways that I had. Again, those last 2 weeks, I would say I've gone on a couple sales calls. I thought they were really, really good. For me, I feel like I've been tuning my messaging a lot more, and it definitely shows. Like one of the last calls I had, the person on the other side was literally like verbatim. I felt like he had my landing page and my ads like printed out and he was reading off of, because the words he was using were the exact words I was using in my videos and in the words that I had on my landing page. So that lets me know that I am definitely crafting it more, I'm adjusting it more, and I'm getting the right people through. The people that I want to talk to on these calls are coming through instead of just getting random people, right? And so I think for me, going into these next few weeks, it's continuing to refine that, continuing to like, okay, these things now popped up on this call. How can I add that in beforehand so that when we get to the call, that's already been taken care of? So as many things for me, I think about as many things as I can get done before the call I would like to, so then I can spend most of the time on the call figuring out what their problem is, figuring out what they're debating in their mind, helping them make a decision. And then, ultimately, if they find what we do valuable, the way that we do it valuable, then to move on to those next steps. But I never want to like force anything either. That's another thing that I don't want to like force them into, oh, you have to do this or you have to do that. But I try to make it very, very clear of like, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is why we're different. And if you're aligned with that, let's do it. And if you're not, this isn't for you. Like I just want to make it very, very simple, because I think a lot of times when people go on these calls, they still don't have enough clarity. I'm getting better at making things beforehand. They jump on the call to help them gain clarity, so then they can make better decisions on the call, but they're still not all the way there yet. So it's really, really interesting. Like business owners know they have a problem, but they still don't know yet how to like really narrow it down to like, got it, that's my root. This is my problem. This is what I need to solve for. So I think a lot of it is just educating them on, here's what's actually causing your problem, and here's why we decided to solve it in this way. We feel like this is the best way to solve it. And if you agree with us, great, let's do it. And if not, then, maybe find someone else in the industry who solves it a different way, or who does it more aligned with your values or your way of thinking about business. So the more I understand, the more I get on these sales calls, the more I'm like, it's just business owners a lot of times don't have clarity around what it is that they want entirely. And there's just levels of clarity, really. And I'm getting better at getting business owners on who have deeper levels of clarity, but they're almost all the way there yet, but not all the way. So I think about, too, how can I add more of who we are in the process? Because sometimes when they're scheduling these calls with us, they haven't seen all of the content that I would have liked them to have seen. So I also think that it's a good frame of reference or frame of mind to go into, of like, got it, if they land on your landing page, just assume that they haven't seen anything. So you build all the words on the landing page, or the videos that you have them watch, build it as if they haven't seen anything from you. And all the ones who've already been following you or watching your videos or interacting with your ads, that will just be a reminder for them. So I just got to think about it through that lens a little bit more. But I think overall, I really like the way that the direction is going. And it goes back to the same thing I've talked about in many, many podcast videos. Like, it takes a lot longer than you think. Like, you think you're going to turn on ads, and within a month, you're like, oh, I'll have customers coming through and it'll be great and it's all worked out. It's just, and obviously it depends on your offer and who you're wanting to work with. So take it with a grain of salt, but most of the times it's going to take you a lot longer than you think. And so sometimes it could take 6 months, sometimes it could take a year before you actually get it across. And so if you have that expectation, then you're not going to get frustrated in the short term when things don't happen. But I think for me, like, the two things I'm really focused on right now are, one, creating valuable free content for top of funnel to get more people to know who I am. And two, once they know who I am and they start engaging with my content, once I go from unknown to known, how can I then start solving their problems for them in ways that's simple, that's easy, that's fast, that's, all those different things we talked about on the values that can add value to them and solve their problems in their business. And so that's the part where I'm at now. So I'm hoping that, if I do continue to provide value and solve problems, then they're going to be more willing at some point to jump on these calls and be ready to move forward with me, and specifically only want to work with me, right? So I want to have that exclusivity, if I can, to a specific set of the market, because they're like, oh, I really know who this company is. I really know who the owner is. And I really vibe with their values, their way of thinking, and I only want to work with them, right? So there are some brands that you have in your own mind, businesses that you buy from, that you only buy from them because you maybe had just a really good experience, or maybe they just did something that blew you away or provided a ton of value, or you were just, maybe you bought an Apple phone and you're like, wow, this is really simple to use. It's really easy UX, UI. And it also talks with the other Apple devices I have. And so that experience, what you get from it, those first couple impressions, definitely help in creating a loyal fan base. And I was watching a clip from TikTok, and it was the guy who did the bar turnarounds. He's done it for so many years, but he talked about this stat of like, when someone walks into your restaurant for the first time and you give them an amazing experience, the likelihood they come back is 40%. And if they do come back and they have an amazing experience after the second time, the likelihood they come back is 40%. And he's like, if they come back for a third time and they have an amazing experience, then the likelihood that they come back then like shoots up through the roof to like 70, 80, I forgot the exact number. But the point is you have to be on point multiple times. You have to over deliver multiple times. You have to bring value multiple times before people will then start to trust you or say, okay, got it. Maybe this person is someone I want to work with down the line. So don't think it's just one interaction or it's just a real quick, thing. It takes time to build that. And hopefully by listening to this, you take away some things that you can then add as value to your business, because it's not just about learning about these things, it's about then applying them to your business. So I would love to know from you, which ones are you're going to implement, which value pillars did you find the most interesting? And if there was one that I missed, or one that you said, hey, Morgan, I think this is also, people value this as well, go ahead and let me know. I'd love to add to my list and provide more value to my customers too. So thank you so much for listening, for joining me on this journey, and I'll catch you on the next one.